In the depths of the human psyche, as the eminent thinker and psychologist Carl Gustav Jung asserted, lies a powerful inner force. This is not merely an instinct, but something far more profound, an internal compass capable of guiding an individual toward an authentic, meaningful and fulfilling life, provided one listens to it and comprehends its wisdom. However, amidst the whirlwind of daily concerns and the incessant stream of external stimuli and demands, most people lose connection with this vital, potent inner source. Such alienation not only distances an individual from their own essence, from their true self, but also leads to a feeling of constraint, constant confusion, and ultimately, deep dissatisfaction. Allow yourself a moment to reflect on those decisions that seemed impeccably correct on a rational level, aligning with all external criteria for success and approval, yet left only a poignant emptiness deep within your soul. Recall relationships, chosen professions, or life paths dictated by societal expectations or logical arguments, which never truly resonated within you or brought genuine satisfaction. Jung argued that the reason for this lies in the systematic disregard of signals emanating from the unconscious, that deepest and wisest part of our psyche. These messages do not arrive as clear instructions or logical conclusions, but rather as subtle sensations, sudden intuitive insights, or vivid, symbolic dreams, which, like guiding threads, indicate the true path. If these sacred inner messages remain unattended, an individual essentially closes the door to the possibility of profound, personal transformation and the realization of their true potential. Yet it's important to remember that the unconscious does not give up without a fight. It possesses remarkable persistence and will not cease its attempts to reach an individual. If the quiet whispers of intuition go unheard, it will begin to shout, manifesting through recurring and sometimes painful patterns in the individual's life. These might be situations that seem to endlessly repeat, creating a sense of being trapped in a loop. People whose presence drains energy, relationships that consistently bring disappointment and frustration, or goals that, despite all efforts, appear unattainable. None of these manifestations are mere coincidences or accidents. They are the persistent message from your inner self, desperately urging you to pause, reflect deeply, and finally return to your authentic essence. Imagine a person at a crossroads. On one side stretches a wide, well-trodden path, bathed in light, followed by many, offering comfort and security. On the other lies an unexplored route, shrouded in darkness and mystery, appearing utterly deserted. Most would prefer to follow familiar routes, yet the eminent thinker Carl Gustav Jung proposed turning one's gaze toward the unknown. This dark path, in his view, is the space for genuine self-development, where an individual can come face to face with their own shadows and discover their true self. The shadow, a key concept in Jung's teachings, embodies aspects of the human psyche that an individual prefers to ignore or remain unaware of. Undesirable emotions, unacceptable thoughts, or suppressed desires pushed into the subconscious due to their inconsistency with the ideal image one strives to present to the world. However, what is repressed does not vanish without a trace. On the contrary, it inevitably manifests in daily actions, in the dynamics of interpersonal relationships, and especially vividly in the most intense emotional reactions. Carl Gustav Jung asserted that the most pronounced irritation experienced towards others typically serves as a mirror reflection of those qualities or aspects that an individual refuses to acknowledge within themselves. It's worth considering, how often have you felt someone's behavior threw you off balance? Such irritation can serve as an important signal indicating the presence of unexplored areas within the psyche. Instead of blaming external circumstances or other people, Jung strongly recommended turning inward, asking, what is this strong emotion truly trying to communicate? Which part of one's own self remains unexplored or rejected? When an individual begins the process of integrating their shadow side, accepting those aspects of their personality that were previously rejected or repressed, something truly remarkable happens. The feeling of inner division gradually disappears. As a result, a deep inner peace and crystal-clear consciousness emerge, allowing decisions to be made guided by one's authentic truth. rather than dictated by fear or the desire to conform to external expectations. This marks the beginning of genuine inner transformation. As one reconnects with oneself, subtle yet profound changes begin to be perceived. Individuals and circumstances that previously drained one's energy seem to lose their power. It appears that by restoring their inner energetic balance, individuals become impervious to what previously affected them so deeply. However, this process is not instantaneous. It invariably requires significant courage, remarkable patience, and unwavering commitment to one's own inner truth. The renowned psychoanalyst Carl Gustav Jung stated that protecting one's life energy is not an act of selfishness, but rather a true act of self-love and self-care. Often, individuals find themselves in interpersonal relationships or life circumstances that objectively do not benefit them, yet they remain in them, mistakenly believing that such a situation is normal or inevitable. Perhaps many have encountered this phenomenon, whether it's a friend, a life partner, or even a professional activity that takes significantly more than it gives back. When a person allows such a development, they thereby transmit a clear message to their unconscious. My own needs do not matter. And it is precisely this deep message that begins to shape and define all subsequent actions and decisions of the individual. Safeguarding one's energy does not mean isolating oneself from the surrounding world. On the contrary, it implies forming clear boundaries that reflect an individual's true worth. This is a process of consciously choosing what one allows into their life and what they prefer to release. Such an approach is not always easy, especially if a person is accustomed to pleasing others or fears conflict. However, each time priority is given to one's own well-being, the inner connection with oneself is strengthened. The eminent thinker Jung repeatedly emphasized that human relationships serve as unique mirrors. The individuals one chooses to keep in their closest circle reflect certain facets of their own self, both those that are accepted and loved and those that are rejected. Consequently, when a person faces continuous clashes with someone, it is not merely an external problem. Rather, it is a call to closely examine the internal processes occurring within the soul. Perhaps these relationships indicate something that requires healing or transformation within oneself. Nevertheless, it must be acknowledged that not all interpersonal connections are destined to be eternal. Some are meant to teach an individual important life lessons, and once that lesson is learned, it is time to move forward. Such a development should not be seen as a defeat. On the contrary, it is clear evidence of personal growth. By freeing oneself from what no longer resonates with one's inner world, one creates space for new experiences and the emergence of new people who can enter their life, those who harmoniously align with their authentic essence. Imagine what a person's life could be like if they gained the ability to let go without a trace of fear, if they freed themselves from the burden of regrets, from the weight of unfulfilled expectations, and from the ties of relationships that do not contribute to their personal growth. What then could such an individual gain? The great thinker Carl Jung teaches us that the act of letting go is not just an action, but a manifestation of the deepest trust in oneself and in the universe as a whole. It means declaring an unwavering belief. I am convinced that what comes to replace what has left will inevitably be better, for I consciously choose what is true and authentic for my essence. When this choice is made, something truly amazing happens. Favorable opportunities begin to align, the right people appear on one's life path, and the heart fills with a sense of deep peace that previously seemed utterly unattainable. This is not a random coincidence. It is a direct reflection of an individual's firm decision to live in complete harmony with their inner nature. Jung also paid special attention to the significance of following the guiding signs that our unconscious sends us. These signals can manifest in various forms, be it a subtle intuitive feeling, vivid and symbolic dreams, or even inexplicable coincidences, which he called synchronicity. Synchronicity, according to Jung, is a special way in which the universe shows us that we are moving in the right direction. However, to recognize and correctly interpret these important signals, one must be fully present in the moment, exercise extreme attentiveness, and be ready to listen to their inner voice. Many people may have already encountered the phenomenon of synchronicity without fully realizing its nature. This manifests, for example, in a timely meeting with the right person or in an unexpected discovery of a solution when it seemed most unattainable. Such experiences are not simply coincidences, they serve as convincing confirmation that one is in harmony with their true purpose. The key aspect here is the ability to trust this invisible process and allow it to guide one's path. Synchronicity, therefore, goes beyond merely miraculous moments. It represents a deep invitation to trust the natural flow of life. However, to access this profound and intimate connection with the universe, an individual must be willing to release habitual control and dare to open up to the unknown. Initially, such a step may seem daunting or even frightening, yet it is precisely in this act of deep surrender and letting go of rigid control that the path to true personal transformation is found. As the eminent psychoanalyst Carl Gustav Jung asserted, it is the resistance to inevitable change that most strongly distances an individual from their inner wholeness. When someone stubbornly clings to the familiar and known, whether due to deeply rooted fear or for reasons of perceived comfort, they are essentially closing doors to much vaster and more promising opportunities. It is important to understand that the act of letting go is not equivalent to capitulation or giving up. On the contrary, it signifies a deep trust that what one voluntarily releases will inevitably create free space for something significantly superior and better to emerge. The space that forms after the act of letting go should not be perceived as a vacuum of loss, but rather as fertile ground for creation. This phenomenon can be compared to the process of cleaning a cluttered room. Initially, its transformation may seem chaotic, but as one clears the area of unnecessary items, the true potential of that space gradually unfolds. This is precisely how the inner world of a person functions. Each time an individual decides to leave behind outdated beliefs, destructive behavior patterns, or exhausted relationships, a path is paved for something entirely new and deeply transformative to emerge. According to Jung's views, true transformation originates exclusively within the individual's inner world. This process does not imply transforming the external environment, but rather requires deep self-analysis and a courageous confrontation with the truths that one has previously diligently avoided. Such truths can sometimes be very uncomfortable, but it is precisely encountering them that becomes the first and most crucial step toward building a more authentic and fulfilling life. Considering moments of emotional turmoil that might once have crushed an individual, it should be noted that Jung interpreted them not as manifestations of weakness or failure, but as important signals indicating inner needs that require close attention. Such chaos, in his opinion, is a precursor to order, a natural and inevitable process of destroying the obsolete, intended to create the necessary space for the birth and development of the new. Any manifestation of grief, be it a tear or any inner discord, serves as a unique opportunity for restructuring on a significantly more stable foundation. However, this transformative process inevitably requires genuine courage, as it implies the ability to look at oneself without any distorting filters or self-justifications. It means accepting the obvious fact: the power to change one's own life has always been in one's own hands. When an individual decides to embrace this inner power, they begin to notice radical changes in their surrounding reality. Individuals who previously drained their life energy gradually move away, while those who genuinely value them begin to enter their life, as if attracted by an invisible magnet. This phenomenon is not magic. It is a direct reflection of the deep inner transformation that has occurred within the person. By building their life in harmony with their authentic essence, an individual sends a clear signal to the universe about their readiness to accept what they truly need. The deep unconscious, this sacred and insightful part of the human being, becomes their most important ally. There is no longer any need to seek answers in the external world, for they invariably reside within the individual themselves. Such an inner dialogue is not a singular event that can be completed and forgotten. On the contrary, it is a continuous process, a daily discipline requiring constant presence with oneself, honesty regarding one's feelings, and decisive actions dictated by conscious discoveries. Carl Gustav Jung, the eminent thinker, described this interconnectedness with the unconscious as a skillful dance. The essence is not to dominate it or neglect it, but to cooperate harmoniously. Every emerging emotion, every intuitive insight experienced by a person serves as an invitation to deeply explore a certain aspect of their own self. And the more an individual allows themselves to listen attentively to these inner signals, the clearer and more distinct this sacred inner voice becomes. In the course of this process, one realizes that they do not need to strive for perfection at all. Carl Jung, the eminent thinker, asserted that the true aspiration in life is not to achieve perfection, but to achieve wholeness. Understanding wholeness implies accepting all facets of one's being, both the bright sides and the shadow aspects, both undeniable strengths and obvious weaknesses. It is the recognition that an individual is not a set of disparate fragments, but a complex, multifaceted, and uniquely beautiful entity. When a person embraces this deep wholeness, a fundamental change occurs in their perception of the world around them and their own existence. Former difficulties and challenges cease to seem like an unbearable burden, for there comes an understanding that each of them holds a unique opportunity for personal growth and development. Relationships with other people lose the character of an obligation as one consciously chooses an environment consisting of those who can inspire and provide genuine support. And what is especially important, the individual gains inner peace that is rooted not in external circumstances, but in a deep and unbreakable connection with their own essence. As one progresses along this path to their authentic self, they come to understand that wholeness is not a final destination, but a continuous dynamic process. It is a series of daily decisions and choices, each designed to strengthen an individual's deep commitment to themselves. Every step taken, however insignificant it may seem at first glance, steadily brings one closer to a way of being that fully reflects their sacred, deep essence. This journey, despite possible difficulties and trials, is filled with invaluable rewards and possesses the power to transform absolutely every aspect of human existence. Carl Jung, the eminent thinker, urged every person to perceive their life path as a sequence of significant chapters in the vast book of existence. He asserted that each of these chapters, even those filled with suffering and deep turmoil, carries a fundamental purpose. Often people succumb to the temptation of viewing difficult periods as insurmountable barriers. However, Jung viewed these moments as gateways leading to a deeper understanding of one's own essence. What an individual stubbornly resists does not dissolve into nothingness. On the contrary, it continues to exist and exert influence until one achieves its full awareness. One can mentally recall those episodes in anyone's life when circumstances seem to completely spiral out of control. Perhaps it was a loss, a painful breakup, or a significant failure. In the midst of such events, suffering often felt like an unbearable burden, yet with the passage of time, in retrospect, many realized that it was precisely this difficult experience that contributed to their inner strengthening, imparted wisdom, and sharpened their understanding of true life priorities. It is in this, as Jung emphasized, that the true transformative power of experienced adversities lies, especially when one faces them head-on, demonstrating inner resilience. The great psychologist Jung also taught that at the core of every crisis lies the seed of potential renewal. He insisted that such crises should not be perceived as punitive measures, but rather as powerful calls for a deep inner awakening. They serve as a clear indicator that certain aspects of one's existence have lost their harmony or truth and urgently require re-evaluation and adjustment. If an individual shows enough courage to turn inward during such critical moments, they will undoubtedly discover reserves of strength within themselves that they may not have previously suspected. This internal, sometimes painful, but ultimately healing process not only contributes to the healing of emotional wounds, but also comprehensively prepares the individual to lead a more sincere and authentic life. One of the most effective methods proposed by the eminent psychologist Carl Gustav Jung for successfully overcoming personal crises is the process of integrating so-called shadows. At first glance, confronting those aspects of one's self that one has stubbornly denied or suppressed may seem extremely frightening or even threatening. However, in essence, it is a deeply liberating act. When an individual decides to integrate their shadows, these previously hidden parts cease to invisibly control their life from subconscious depths. On the contrary, they transform, becoming a powerful source of inner strength, inexhaustible creative potential, and emotional depth. As a vivid example, consider a situation where a person has long suppressed their anger, fearing its potential destructive impact on others. Such suppressed anger, contrary to popular misconception, does not disappear. Instead, it transforms, manifesting in the form of festering resentment, unconscious patterns of self-sabotage, or leading to the formation of dysfunctional, toxic relationships. However, when an individual consciously decides to face this feeling of anger, deeply understand its true origin, and purposefully channel its energy into a constructive direction, they realize that anger itself is not something bad. Rather, it is an important inner signal indicating the need for certain changes in the individual's life. It is a powerful tool that, when used wisely and consciously, can help a person clearly set personal boundaries, effectively protect their interests, and openly express their pressing needs. This fundamental act of integration radically transforms not only one's relationship with oneself but also one's interaction with others. Interpersonal relationships cease to be an arena for conflict and struggle as the individual begins to interact with others from a state of inner wholeness and genuine authenticity. As a result, the artificial masks that people wear in daily life gradually fall away, unrealistic expectations dissolve, and in their place, a sincere, deep, and truly meaningful connection forms. However, the depth of interpersonal connections and true unity are achievable only if an individual is willing to be vulnerable. The eminent thinker Carl Jung, contrary to popular misconceptions, interpreted vulnerability not as a manifestation of weakness, but as an undeniable testament to inner strength. True vulnerability implies absolute honesty, both with oneself and with others, regarding one's essence, one's needs, and one's deepest experiences. Such an act of baring the soul creates fertile ground for the emergence of deep intimacy and the achievement of genuine mutual understanding. When an individual consciously chooses such a way of being, something truly amazing and transformative happens. They begin to attract relationships into their orbit that do not deplete their life force, but on the contrary, enrich and elevate their existence. Suitable life companions appear not because of their impeccability, but because of their harmonious resonance with one's energetic field and life purpose. Undoubtedly, even such connections are not without trials and obstacles, yet these difficulties transform into valuable opportunities for joint development and strengthening, rather than for alienation and disunity. According to Jung's views, authenticity represents an invaluable gift that an individual can bestow not only upon themselves, but also generously upon others. Its essence lies not in striving for an unattainable ideal or in attempting to please others' demands and expectations. On the contrary, it means being true, honoring one's own self in every living moment, and fully following this inner truth. By acting in this way, one not only radically transforms their own existence, but also inadvertently becomes a source of inspiration for those around them, encouraging them to similar actions. Deep authenticity and a close connection with one's own unconscious represent fundamental tools for achieving a degree of well-being that previously might have seemed utterly unattainable. The great thinker Jung repeatedly emphasized that the true fullness of being is attained not through total control over every aspect of daily life, but, on the contrary, when an individual allows the natural flow of their inner world and the powerful universe to act in complete agreement and harmony. It is at this moment that the concept of synchronicity emerges on the horizon of human experience, those astonishing events that seem to perfectly coincide, creating the impression that the universe itself unmistakably points a person in the right direction. Synchronicity, in essence, is not a mystical or magical phenomenon. It serves as a vivid manifestation of the inseparable connection between an individual's inner world and their external environment. This state occurs when a person's thoughts, emotions, and actions are in complete alignment with their deepest purpose. In such moments, everything seems to unfold effortlessly, as if by itself. However, to experience these moments, one must diligently and consciously cultivate their relationship with themselves and their own intuition. Carl Jung also strongly urged individuals to deeply consider the significance of paying close attention to the smallest, seemingly insignificant details of daily life. Examples of such details might include an unexpected conversation that suddenly prompts deep reflection, or an inner intuitive feeling that initially seemed irrational and unfounded but ultimately proved to be absolutely correct, or even a seemingly chance encounter that fundamentally altered one's plans. These events, as Jung emphasized, are by no means mere coincidences. They represent valuable opportunities for individuals to confirm that they are truly in harmony with their authentic purpose. Nevertheless, to timely notice and effectively utilize these subtle yet significant signals, it is vitally important to constantly remain in a state of conscious presence. In the modern world, overflowing with various distractions and constant noise, the ability to be in the moment, to be truly present, has become a truly revolutionary act. This implies nothing less than consciously dedicating time for deep self-reflection, attentively listening to one's inner voice, observing the surrounding world intently, and thoughtfully contemplating the meaning of every lived experience. Such a degree of focus and awareness not only deepens a person's personal connection with their inner self, but also empowers them to interact with the world from a state of absolute clarity of thought and unwavering confidence in their actions. The key element, the foundation of this entire process, is boundless trust in it. It often happens that an overwhelming fear of potential failure or societal rejection forces people to disregard their own intuitive premonitions. They tend to cling to what is familiar and known, mistakenly believing that true security lies there, but such certainty is nothing more than a deceptive illusion. As Carl Gustav Jung rightly noted, true personal development and growth only occur when one gathers the courage to step onto an uncharted path, discarding familiar boundaries. It is in this realm of uncertainty, away from well-trodden paths, that an individual discovers and unleashes their true, profound power. The deep inner transformation that Jung extensively discussed influences not only aspects of a person's personal life, but also all their long-term goals and cherished aspirations. The moment an individual begins to live in full alignment with their authentic essence, they realize with surprise that goals that once seemed absolutely unattainable are now well within their reach. Such changes occur not because the world around them has drastically transformed, but because their own perspective, inner energy, and focus have completely synchronized with what they truly desire. It is natural for people to reflect on their deepest aspirations, those cherished guideposts that once provided a powerful impetus, but from which they might have retreated under the pressure of fear or insecurity. However, as Carl Gustav Jung reminds us, it is never too late to reconnect with what deeply attracts and inspires. This process undoubtedly requires resilience and unwavering determination. It implies letting go of self-justifications, bravely facing one's fears, and taking tangible actions toward what one truly desires. On this challenging journey, individuals also realize that they do not need to overcome everything alone. Connections between people based on sincerity and mutual respect become a reliable foundation for personal growth. These are the right people who will stimulate growth, provide support, and help one see aspects of themselves that they may have previously overlooked. It is important to remember that not all relationships are meant to last forever, and this is perfectly natural. Some individuals come into a person's life to teach them something, and once the valuable lesson is learned, it is time to move on. Letting go of what no longer resonates is not a sign of defeat, but rather a clear indication of evolution. Each time a person releases what is no longer relevant, they make space for what they truly need. The profound process of inner transformation and self-alignment affects not only an individual's emotional state, but also their perception of their own identity. Along this path, a person begins to realize that there is no need to seek external validation to feel complete. The true worth of an individual is not determined by external judgments, but stems from their inner self-acceptance. And when an individual feels authentically who they are, without the slightest pretense, this becomes a truly invaluable asset. Living in harmony with their inner truth, they understand that the path of life, previously perceived as thorny and confusing, begins to unfold in all its clarity. It should be noted that the process of transformation is not an instantaneous act. On the contrary, each carefully considered step, each conscious decision, steadily brings the individual closer to the form of existence they have always yearned for. Such an existence does not imply striving for an unattainable ideal or conforming to externally imposed standards. It lies in discovering one's authentic self with all its unique manifestations, both bright sides and inevitable shadows, with accumulated experiences of successes and lessons learned. The great thinker Carl Gustav Jung left behind a profound teaching. According to his insight, when an individual fully embraces their essence and bravely embarks on deep self-exploration, they not only transform their own being, but also fundamentally change the nature of their impact on the surrounding world. Thus, by becoming an authentic, whole person, one inadvertently becomes a guiding light for others. Their personal example can serve as a powerful source of inspiration for those who are searching for answers, feel the oppressive emptiness of disconnection, and passionately desire to fill their lives with deep meaning and purpose. Today, each person has the opportunity to take this important step, to leave behind the restrictive shackles of fear and numerous excuses, to reconnect with their authentic self. There is no need to strive for instant, comprehensive changes. Sometimes, just one, albeit modest, action is enough. It is about carefully listening to the inner voice, one's own intuition, comprehending the lessons and signs that life itself presents, and then relying on this sense of inner alignment, beginning to act. Such a seemingly insignificant transformation can initiate something truly grand, something deeply transformative. Deep gratitude is extended to everyone who was here, listened, and actively participated in this significant journey. It is important to always remember true change originates within oneself, and all the necessary resources, all the inexhaustible potential for transformation are already inherently embedded within one's depths. The time has come to allow this inner richness to manifest and be fully released.